Well, hey,
I'm going to shut up now.
Hey, we're back on. This great show. Got the music playing. Life is going fast here. It's almost Christmas, and Santa is on his way, maybe. You don't know. But one thing we do know is going to happen is the off night. And we have a lot of guests tonight. It's going to be a lot of fun, so please watch and please pay attention to what's happening, because Mark Sweetman is your host. Welcome, Mark Sweetman.
All right.
Hey.
Yeah, I should be on.
You're on. I see you. I see you in there.
Okay. All right. Well,
you know, I seem to have a floating head, which is kind of cool. You know.
It is cool. Well, you know, that's because you've got the black hat and the black background and the white beard.
Exactly.
I'm sure you've probably got an auto light. Yeah, you probably got an auto white balance, and that beard just throws everything off. It's
there
like
you go,
know, my face is always brighter. You notice I don't have that background. You remember that background you gave? I had it for 2 weeks and I didn't put it up today. I'm a little bit disappointed that Tim doesn't want to use that.
I am too. I mean, it's like it's a non-expensive thing to use. We already have it. I'm going like, why do we have to spend more money on something? You know?
Well, and he thinks that for those of you. Andy and I are getting into a conversation that we started last night, so I'll bring everybody else up to speed that's watching this. We have a backdrop for a show we do on Sunday nights. It's called the Unclub, and the backdrop is for behind the stage. And I thought that we needed it because we it's got windows there, and we used to
drunk people walk by.
I'll get to that. This is my wife, by the way, who always is here to correct me.
I'm not correcting.
No, that wasn't twice you said something.
I'm making you better.
Oh.
Okay. Now I understand this. Okay. Yes, of course.
I'm a witness to the drunk people walking by the windows while comics are trying to tell their jokes.
Exactly. It's like it sometimes doesn't help. Sometimes the half-naked man with a dog pulling the trail is not exactly going to help the comic.
Or the police arresting him.
Now wait a minute. We have two performers on the off night tonight that were at that.
Oh, that witnessed it.
Auspicious night. Yes. So we can talk about that. But anyway, that wasn't the reason for it. The reason is we used to have the ambient lighting from the room. And nobody liked it, especially I had audience members saying it would be much nicer if the lights were down and the lights were on the performers. And I understand that. If the people in the back are being seen, sometimes it could be distracting. And so we got stage lights. Well, as soon as we got stage lights, the first thing I noticed was it was blinding the people that were trying to look at the comic on stage because it's reflecting off the windows behind it. I said, let's put a backdrop up. You came up with that huge backdrop, which was great. I bought the rack that we could hang it on. And I put it up, and Tim didn't like it because he thinks that those Christmas lights or whatever the fuck that is that hangs down off of the top, he thinks that gives it character. And he says it makes his still photos great. I go, yeah. And it blinds the people that are trying to look at the comedian.
Exactly.
Last night, that was true. That light from the Fresnel or whatever type of stage light that is. It reflected on the window, and it was difficult to see the comic because the light was very bright back in my eyes.
Now, however, not all open mics give their comics a drink ticket. So Tim negotiated that. No, Tim negotiated that for us. So
you can't say too much. Maybe we can we put lights on the drop, so he has a backdrop with the lights or something like that. So.
Try it 1 week and just tell him we're trying it 1 week and see.
He wants me to get a backdrop. I'll use the same rack because I can hang it from it. That's got the Unclub logo.
Yeah,
and we've got a version of it that is a horizontal view. You know what I mean? We use it we use one version on the Facebook page, but and we'll work on that. But anyway, I want to talk to you about your stuff before we bring Susan on here for her poem. Those of you that are regular viewers know that Susan comes in here with her topical poem. But first, I'd like to talk to Andy. This is a hot season for Andy. Andy is a department store Santa. And this year, his gig is so big that he's splitting duties at 12 Oaks Mall and Novi There's actually 2 mall Santas at 12 Oaks this year. Andy's one of them.
Yeah.
So if you're
the headliner, though. I'm the headliner. Okay.
Exactly.
The opening guy is a prop act, okay? It's a prop act. I'm using my own face, I'm doing my own lines, man.
Exactly. The Santa that goes up before him does musical parodies, so not a real Santa.
He's got
a bunch of keychains. He's got a bunch of. You can hear him walking down the hallway because he's got a bunch of bells on, you know. Then he pulls out this sheet of is your name on the list? So they're all in Elfin, okay? So he's doing nothing but props, man.
I just wanted to say something about last night when you went up there and started talking about this department stores or mall Santa thing last night. You forgot to mention to the audience. Now the comics knew because we've seen you do this before, but you forgot to mention to the audience that you're a department store Santa or that you're a mall Santa. Mm-hmm. That would have helped with that material because they thought you were just ranting.
Man's ranting about the set. That's right. You know.
Exactly.
I said I was Santa. I told him I was Santa. Yes, you're right. I'm Santa. Okay. I knew I was Santa. They knew I was Santa. But
they knew you were Santa, but we all knew that you were talking about examples of things that happened. I mean, we knew
in the mall, yes.
But the civilian audience wasn't. And we had
started with Santa.
Yeah. But the civilian audience, of which we had a large civilian audience last night, so that was kind of nice to have, a lot of people that were there to laugh and not just, waiting for their turn so that they could leave after they got up.
That's pretty nice. Well, I hope they laughed. I think I heard they laughed. So I thought I heard some laughs. Maybe I'm delusional. I don't know.
No, you did great. I mean, considering you went up last and the place was spent, I thought you did great.
Oh, cool. Great.
All right. So anyway, but everything's going great at the 12 Oaks, and as long as your prop Santa knows his place, you'll be fine, right?
Yeah, he's fine. Well, he had to do the pet nights, so apparently there was a. So being headliner has this great thing. Is
that in your rider? I don't do no fucking pet nights. I don't pose.
It's almost gotten to that point because I always ask like, so does this gig come with pet nights? And I kind of go. There's always a hesitation, like 5 seconds. Yes. Hey, I don't do pet nights, man. It's like, and then I have to sigh hard.
Call my agent. Get this damn cat out of here.
Get out of here. Yeah. Why is Santa smiling so awkwardly when he has like iguana on his chest? I don't think so. Is it because the cat's digging his claws right into Santa's leg? No, that's not why. But apparently they had one of the dogs came in and did a big dump in one of the trees. So
that's beautiful.
So they cleaned it up. I call it Winnie the Pooh corner now. Because it's like so everybody knows. Not to go there.
My Santa experience, even though I have the Santa look and everything, was on radio. And I said, well, they got me a Santa outfit. I go, it's on radio. This is like, Charlie McCarthy, but they did Facebook Live and they did photo shots and we shot a commercial out at one of the parks.
The winner came into the...
Yeah. Well, that goes back to Von Stroheim. The director von Stroheim, when he was directing Greed.
Uh-huh.
And what's his name says, well, why do you need underwear for all these soldiers? Why do we need underwear? It can't be seen in the movies. Why do they need underwear for all these soldiers? And the guy says, Stroheim says, because they'll feel like soldiers that time.
So it's got to be government.
They got you the suit to make you feel like Santa Claus.
So they have, that means it can't be comfortable. It can't be comfortable. Calvin Klein's. It's got to be government issued. It's got to be GI shorts, right?
Exactly. There you go.
All right. Well, my wife has things to do, and her portion is only reading this poem. So we're going to get right to it before we bring out our.
Helping you.
Oh yes, I'm sorry.
That's right.
I'm sorry. My wife isn't busy at all. She's just here to help. So.
That's anyway, right.
Here's my lovely bride with her portion.
My shirt. I'm with Goofy.
Yeah. Oh, is that what that says? I didn't even notice.
I think that's what it says. Doesn't it?
Can I do that right here? There we go.
I'm with Goofy.
All right, good. All right, read the poem.
Okay.
Read on.
News stories this week. And here we go. Stainless steel mixed with lead. Bad idea for all. Therefore, leaded baby cups are now on the recall. On Hawaii's Big Island, Mauna Loa is erupting. Meanwhile, Trump's court cases keep on disrupting. Last week, his taxes got a blow from the Supreme Court. His efforts to hide headed to the House, and Dems will sort. And Mar-a-Lago documents trial set in another court blow. Will he run a credible campaign amid the chaos? I don't know. And in sports, the World Cup is well underway. U.S. men need a win if they still want to play. In support of women's rights, there's a bit of hesitation. The Iranian flag was altered by the U.S. Soccer Federation. So there's your headlines. That's the poem. I'm going to turn it back over to Mark.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
No. You're an assistant there. I got you.
Yeah, that was great. Hey, that didn't finish in time for me to get back here. If you could, after that's done, thanks. Appreciate it. All right. So let's bring our others out here. First, one of our regulars. I guess I'd come regular. This is Jason Grant. Mm-hmm. Jason has become now famous as the man who, let me get rid of that banner that I got up there. Jason has become famous as our leadoff man on the Unclubbed Showcase on Sunday nights. Jason, welcome.
Just trying to bring a little energy into the room, to get things off to a good start.
You did a fine job last night, I thought.
Yeah, thank you. It felt good to me too. Yeah, I really did. It was nice to kind of bring in some stuff that I had done before, a few bad cliches, and put them all together. And hey,
he pulls me aside before he goes on, right? And he says, I might be a little bit dark tonight.
I would say, it would be better if you just said, it might be a little light tonight, because every day is dark with you.
Well,
I got a big laugh after you got done, because when I told the story after he got off stage, I said, Jason came up to me before the show. He goes, I'm going to keep it light tonight.
What can I say? Much as I would love to compose a McCartney-esque ballad of comedy, it doesn't work out that way. And I'm more like someone who's recently been on tour with a Guar cover band for a little too long. And
well, I'll tell you what, you make Lenny Bruce look like a Bozo the Clown. You know what I'm saying? It's like...
Well, that's funny. You're doing the whole Santa Claus thing. I'm doing the second clown thing at the Jeffrey Dahmer Children's Hospital. Yeah. Look,
it was Gacy though. I thought that was Dahmer was not the clown. Gacy was the clown.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I get them all confused. I mean, you've seen one queer killer, you've seen them all. So I'm going to get in trouble for that. I was going to try and keep the gay references to a bareback minimum, but it's not working out so well. So we'll tone it down from here, I'm afraid.
Well, it's a mountain of them, right?
Thank you.
Damn.
Yeah, I've been out driving all day, so it's been strange. I got a little bit of the white line fever, from being behind the wheel and downing way too much caffeine. So
I know what that's like, and this is funny too, because I don't think young comics understand this, but you might remember this, Andy. Remember back in the 80s, after you've driven a long time, you get to a hotel room and you'd close your eyes and you could see the Rand McNally.
Yeah,
you could still see
burned into your brain.
You could still see the road. You could still see.
No, not just the road, but the Rand McNally map was. The image of the map was burned into your brain. So,
I can't imagine what it must have been like for you guys if you had to drive a ton of miles in 12 hours and then have to go up that night. That would be.
Well, I always make sure my drive included some time to. Get a nap or something before the show if I was going to town. I rarely got up at 8:00 in the morning and drove to some place where I had to do an 8:00 show. I would make sure that I'd get there a little bit early.
I mean, and now I hear tales of, Ron White talking about the travails of using his private jet to get from one place to the other. And, but I don't know, I guess you balance that against, Ron was also talking about when he was trying to make it as a comedian, and he was living in a trailer camper on somebody's property, and they didn't necessarily even know he was there. And the definition of trailer camper was sort of like a tent that had been scotch taped to a platform. So, well, he's done well for himself. To be fair, he did pay a few dues along the way as well, so there's that, I guess.
Well, let's bring in our East Coast, our East Coast host, our hostess with the mostest. The king of the Lower East Side, or as I found out when I was in New York, the LES, the Lower East Side. Here he is, everybody.
Hey,
everybody's favorite, Sam Greenfield. Hey, how's it going, Sam?
Sorry I was late, everybody. I was at the Nick Fuentes barbecue, and let me tell you, it's a rough smoker for a Jew. Let me just say that. He kept saying, "Jump in." I said, "No, it's all right. I'll pass." Someone has to explain something to me. I don't know if you saw Trump's tweet about this, but he said in it, I had Kanye West, parenthesis, who happens to be black. What? What?
Oh, God,
we know.
He just wanted to make sure we understood that Kanye happens to be black. It could have gone the other way. It happens. Right. It could have gone the other way.
That's right. He could have been an octoroon. That is my favorite expression he's going of all time.
Saying he happens to be black goes against his base because that's sort of admitting that there's actually mutations.
Oh dear.
I'm mystified by the fact that he said Kanye West showed up with 3 other people, one of whom was Fuentes, and they came in. You got the Secret Service there. You can't just come in. They go up to they go up to Trump and they go, "We got this guy here. His name is Nick Fuentes." Oh, the Nazi. Yeah, come on in. I mean, come on.
No. Yeah. And
but I think Trump has been a lying sack of shit since the time he was 8 years old, and I just think he grew up that way. I just think he grew up telling whatever tale he wanted to tell and expecting it to be accepted. Hey, Sammy.
Yeah,
I got two
that
new guys.
Accurate because I'm sorry.
I'm just saying I got 2 new guys I want to bring out here because I don't want them waiting out here the whole time.
Okay, let me make this real quick. That thing about lying is actually accurate because Mary Trump, his niece, his niece said that he would steal his brother's toys and hide them and never ever tell him where they were at 8 years old.
Wow.
And when you're 8 years old, your toys are like your world. Never told them. And used one of them as a device on Melania. I don't want to say which one. But
hey, I got 2 new guys, Sam. I want to throw
bring
into
them
the
on
mix
in
tonight.
Bring them on
now,
in.
Unfortunately, they're older white gentlemen.
Oh dear.
Pass.
Yeah, I know. I want more diversity. I want more diversity. But you know who has time on Monday night? Old cisgendered white guys.
Old white guys.
I'm sorry, Jason. Old white guys. I didn't mean to. I didn't mean to diss you. I didn't mean to diss you there, Jason.
No,
but anyway,
I've gotten over it, Mark. It's cool.
Oh, have it? Oh, good. Because you can always get me back on stage. So
yeah, well,
all right.
Wouldn't be the first time. Go ahead.
Yeah, coming up next is one of our regular unclubbers. Hold on, just a second.
I'm going to see a movie. Could we do it either in the morning before I work?
What time do you work?
10 to 4. So
okay. Yeah. Get up.
What are you wearing?
We'll do it in the morning. No, it's my daughter. Please don't say that.
I'm so sorry. I thought it was one of the guys. Jesus, I'm so sorry. I feel Epsteinian.
Epsteinian. My daughter and I had plans after the show to work on some of her scholarship stuff. She's going back to school and she didn't realize.
Congratulations.
Well, that's the good part. The bad part is she didn't realize if she stopped going to school that there'd be some trouble with her scholarships. So we've got to make sure that that's all straightened out, and she has to do. Anyway, that, and I want to introduce her to the world of 401k also. So because her employer has matching contributions, and her brother, who works for the same company, has like $5,000 of free money, which he says makes up for the $5,000 he lost by putting money into a failing market.
It happens.
But as long as half of it came from the employer,
just tell her that every kiss begins. Tell her that every kiss begins with 401k.
There you go. That works. Anyway, I want to bring out one of our better unclubbers. Present company excluded. We are we're all the same group. Here's Ned Rice, ladies and gentlemen. Ned, welcome to the off night.
Ned.
This is
Ned Rice, as I live and breathe. How are you?
Sam Greenfield, my old friend from New York. How are you?
How you doing, pal? It's good to see you.
Good to see you. I want to point out when Trump did that thing with the toys, people forget he also turned his brother's treehouse into a co-op.
But it's okay because it was restricted.
Big time. Yeah.
Restricted. I thought he said rent control.
Yeah.
No. Different thing.
No.
Also, Kyrie Irving and Kanye and Nick couldn't be here tonight. They're hosting an anti-Semitic film festival, so they sent their apologies for that. Boy,
I want to hear the name of this. What's the name of this festival? I want to hear the name of this festival.
That's the whole joke, Mark. That's as far as I can.
It's called Cornering the Market on Self-Hatred, starring Kyrie Irving.
Kyrie Irving was criticized for referencing a anti-Semitic film.
That's right. Yeah, the one.
From Jews to Negroes, it was called. Really, that was the name. Yeah, that was the name.
That was the real name. Wow.
Huh.
Yeah, from Jews to Negroes.
Huh.
Wow.
Which I thought was two. I thought that was two aisles in a supermarket, but I was wrong.
Maybe it was a double feature of Birth of a Nation. Who knows?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. The gentleman's disagreement. So
Sam and Ned, how did you guys know? You guys know each other from New York? Is that what it is?
A lot of mutual friends from the improv.
I'm sorry, Sam, we missed that.
Ned, I want to ask you something.
Sure.
Ned, how amazed are you that Silver outlived Bud?
Very, very amazed. She's
how old is Silver?
It's like the old Alan King joke. She had, Yeah, but it's like the old Alan King joke. He is survived by his wife.
She is still around. I think they're trying to make a documentary about her, and of course she's not.
You know the story about her in Atlantic City, right?
I don't know. Maybe.
Okay, when they had their divorce, Bud and Silver, it was whatever the opposite of harmonious is, or agreeable,
amicable,
and or that's the word I was actually looking for. Thank you. And the agreement was that Silver would get the improv at 44th and 9th.
44th and 9th.
In Hell's Kitchen, right? And Bud would get would have the right to build an improv anywhere else, except he could not build it within 100 miles of that improv. At 44th and 9th. He wanted to build. He wanted to have in City.
Lost you.
Yeah, we're losing your sound. We're losing your sound, Sam.
We're not getting your audio, Sam.
You said,
How about
Sam.
now?
You said we.
How about now?
Now we are.
Yeah, a
You're
little bit.
good now. Here we heard up to he wanted to build, and then you went out.
He wanted to build an improv in Atlantic City, and the agreement was he couldn't build it within 100 miles of the original improv. So he picked out a site. They negotiated the agreement. They had everything set. Silver got in a car and drove from 44th and 9th to that spot in Atlantic City, and it was 98 miles, and she scotched the deal.
That sounds like Silver. Yep. That sounds like her.
Like any
98 miles, like baby.
Mm.
Well, the most terrifying thing about that is the idea of Silver driving.
That is a scary.
See that, right? You know,
that
I'm hoping maybe one of her daughters was with her. You know, maybe Zoe. Mom, turn here. I'll kill you.
Mitzi never drove.
Well, people crazy.
Yeah, that's true.
That's true. That's true. I forgot about
that. You're gonna come here. You're gonna come to LA. You're gonna work for me. That's my quote from Mitzi. You had a nice set. You're gonna come here. You're gonna come here and work for me. Well, I no. Was my answer. I said I'm flattered, but no. I said it's 3,000 miles is a long way to go to. Yeah, I might hire you. No, it's all right. I'm good. I can't move a meth lab that far.
My audition for Mitzi ended with her going, "You're not ready," and I said, "I MC every weekend at the Improv. I've already middled at the Ice House and the Comedy Magic Club, and I'm a regular at Igby's." And she goes, "That doesn't mean anything here."
Well, I had one of the best sets I've ever had in LA on that audition night. So I knew that, you know, she but it was kind of like, and you lit onto this, Mark, when the way she said it. It was like, I'm doing you a favor. I'm letting you work here, instead of, I think you're really terrific. I'd like you to work here. If she had put it that way.
Yeah, that was the whole crux of the strike back in '79, because of the way her whole attitude about that was.
Well, no, she said, and this is a quote: if you perform at the Improv, at the Comedy Store, the reason we don't pay you is because this is like going to school. You're learning your craft. Mm-hmm. Oh, really? Right. It's like going to school. So that cover charge, what is that for my books? Shit. And then
I got one more guy, Sammy, waiting in the wings. It's another.
Let's bring him on.
This guy's not an unclubber, but let me give you a little short introduction of this next guy I'm bringing on here. He does come to the dojo, and he is critical in my career. 45 years ago, October 30th, 45 years ago, he and I were out with other of his schoolmates at Wayne State University. I was on campus because I was a senior in high school, and I had a fake ID. That night, I was Mike Manor, because the drinking age was 18. I was only 17. And we're getting drunk as shit in the Cass Corridor in Detroit. And I was with this guy, and he's the guy that taught Ron English and Lyman Woodard, big names in Detroit jazz. If you're from here, you'd know who those guys are. And nationally, they're big names too, but just not as popular as some of the other jazz musicians. They were the acts, and it was like a big switchover between the two acts. They were co-headlining. Normally, these two guys wouldn't be on the same show together. It was October 30th, which at that time we called it Devil's Night. I don't even think they call it that anymore. No. And it also happened to be Star Wars theme night. So here the whole city is burning down because people are torching the city. And along the Cass Corridor, all the pushers and pimps and hookers are dressed in Star Wars costumes for Halloween. Yeah. And this next guy I'm bringing up, he talked to the club owner, and because I was making these guys laugh, as drunk as we were, and he goes, "You ought to go up." And so the first time I ever went on stage in front of an audience in a bar was 45 years ago on October 30th. And this is the man that talked to me. Here he is. I'll tell you more about him once I bring him on. Here's Johnny Lewis, everybody. Johnny Lewis.
Yay.
Johnny Lewis.
Johnny, what have you done?
Actually, Johnny's actually a filmmaker.
Yeah.
No, I mean making Mark a comedian. What were you thinking? I'm kidding. Hilarious.
Johnny's actually a filmmaker, and he's taken the dojo, and he's bringing some people in too, which I appreciate. Although after last night, Johnny, you'll have to agree with me. I think keeping it to 6 is a good idea. If we get too many, when we get too many in there, we're really not giving people enough time for what we do. So, and those of you that haven't been to my dojo before, it's a workout gym. It's where we come in there, and I like to get as many different types of acts as possible, because then we don't have to worry about somebody, something rubbing off on someone else. If we've got somebody that does wild and crazy, and another one that does witty observational stuff like that, just keeping it all diverse, it helps us all help each other out. So, and that's what we do on Sundays from 5 to 7.
Rubbing off on someone else makes it sound dirty.
I like that.
That's the idea.
Yeah, that's after the show. Sam.
It's
that's
a
after
dojo.
the show.
That's the part that drew me closer. Actually,
But Johnny's a filmmaker. He's made some independent films. Go ahead and plug your films, Johnny. Here's your chance.
I won a ton of awards for not a ton, about 20 awards for some.
How much do they weigh?
What?
How much do they weigh? It may have been a ton.
It may have been.
Yeah, it may have been a ton.
They're very, very large awards, very tall. For anti-war comedies.
Yeah, he won a ton of awards, which is only 2 because he won them at the Concrete Film Festival.
And then I shot an independent feature-length film, and I'm writing some other features, so I've got a couple written. And you guys we were talking about the old times, and I remember when I was still a scientific book publisher, when I was about maybe 30 or 35, and I went out to the Improv in LA, and somehow in between shows I ended up alone in the lobby with Bud Friedman, and had a nice little chat with him. And he was just a nice guy. I mean, I was nobody for nothing, and he just was genuinely nice. So if you got stories about Bud, I'd love to hear what kind of a guy he was. Unless it was an asshole.
Everything I've ever heard was he was a great guy.
That's what I figured.
Yeah, that's what I've always heard.
Yeah.
I never heard anything bad about him. I mean, the worst thing I ever heard about Bud was pretentious, but gee, pretentious in Hollywood? Get out of here.
Yeah, by Hollywood standards, he was not pretentious.
No, not at all. No,
he was
very helpful to a lot of people.
The least pretentious.
You know what was funny about him?
I was monocle.
Yeah.
The monocle.
In '88, I had won the LA portion of the Johnny Walker Red comedy competition and was in the finals. Which basically was the next night because they had gone all around the country. Bud got a deal with Johnny Walker Red whiskey where they put on these all over the country, these competitions. Do you remember that? Anybody?
Did I?
Yeah, I remember that day that Tony Hayes won it. So
that's what Pete Fogel came out of.
You remember Jimmy Wiggins?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Jimmy Wiggins was in there.
Yeah.
The greatest comedy story I've ever heard, if I may. Jimmy Wiggins is kind of a hippie, beard kind of guy. Not what you would see at an improv audition.
He'd tell you about his Christmas tree theory.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. So he goes on stage at this competition, the Johnny Walker Red competition, and he goes on stage and he goes, "Well, it's great to be here. Excuse me, you 4 guys sitting up front, are you the judges?" "Yes, we are." "Just you 4? "Yes." "Well, then who did I blow in the men's room?" And Bud walked up to him later. He said, "I don't think you're going to win, but I think you're terrific, and I'd like you to, if you're in LA and you're going to be here for a couple of weeks, I'd like to have you on stage every night for 2 weeks."
Nice.
Because that line is just out of that. That is extraterrestrially good. Oh my God.
Pretty great.
I think I've told this story on the show before, but the other 2 guys weren't here. I'll tell it again. It was at the Improv, and I had one of those watches that had it was when digitals first came. We're talking about 1988, so digital watches were basically LED, and it made that goofy.
You had a Casio? You're saying you had a Casio?
A Casio watch. And so I knew I was coming up because we had the order we were going up. So I said, all right, I'm going to set this to go off in about a minute. And I get the introduction. I go up there and I see I got about 25 seconds left. So they had a bowl that you're supposed to a metal bowl, looked like a popcorn bowl. You stick your card in your entry. Basically, it was your entry, and you put that in there. And then I took my keys and I put that in there. I put my wallet in there, like I'm going through airport security. And then I timed it, and I glanced at my watch a couple times. I saw that the alarm was coming up, so I went right up to the mic. I hold the mic, and then the alarm goes off on my watch. I go, oh, and I take the watch off and I throw that in the bucket too. Well, Jimmy Miller and Mike Lacey and the guy who booked Igby's, Jan Smith.
Yes.
All were the judges, and I got bookings from each of those guys. And Jimmy Miller said Jimmy Miller booked. That's Dennis Miller's brother, and what's his name? Jim Carrey's manager. But anyway, he said you were booked the minute you took that watch off. That was it. You didn't have to do anything else after that. And
Wow.
I had won the local. I mean, my material was funny. He says, but once you did that, everybody in the room got it. And so anyway, so I won. So this how that relates to Bud is, once I get booked by those guys, now Bud's like making me the regular MC, and I did that for about 5 years. But when I was in Detroit the next year, when the Johnny Walker Red Tour came through Detroit, I says, well, I'll just try out again. And Bud sees me, and he says, what? I says, I'm working this club this week. That's why I'm here. And he goes, oh. And he's looking at it. He goes, do you think this would make a good improv? And
always thinking.
And guess which club it was at? It was at the famous bowling alley club that Jeff Foxworthy made famous because he did his he started his "You Might Be a Redneck" bit at Chaplin's over on the east side.
Oh yeah.
Wait a minute, I worked at Chaplin's once.
But that's where Jeff Foxworthy started his "You Might Be a Redneck." That's where he started that bit.
Wow,
that's weird.
Because somebody said to him, was making fun of him as being a Southern hick. He goes, "You've got valet parking at a bowling alley. Is there anything more redneck than that?"
That's funny. That is funny.
And then he in the comics he was working with that. We just basically came up with it. You might be a redneck if you're bowling. He has valet parking, that type of thing.
Yeah. If you go to family reunions to meet girls, you might be a redneck. That's my favorite.
Yeah.
If you ever took a beer to a job interview.
If your mother doesn't take the Marlboro out of her lip to tell the state trooper to kiss her ass,
you might be a redneck, yeah.
But if your mother doesn't lose 2 feet of hair when she walks under a ceiling fan.
That week in Detroit, Bud said to me, you're not going to win this. But you already got what you need, what you would get out of winning this from last year. So don't
see. That's very smart of him because he knew what that Seinfeld said something about something like that. There was an HBO comedy contest, and Seinfeld was talking about this, I think, with Eddie Murphy, and he said, these guys who win these contests, because Seinfeld would never enter one ever, and they asked him why, and he said, you enter this contest. And let's say you win, okay? The guys who win this think, well, that's it. My career is set. No, that's one night. You did something good on one night. Now, what about tomorrow? What about the next week? The longer you go, the less value that has. You won a comedy contest. Yeah. HBO. Whoopee. Well, that's great. But
it was actually Rami Angelic. Anybody know Rami? That called me. She was still in Chicago at the time. She's from Texas. She started in Texas, moved to Chicago. She was in Chicago, and she had done the contest in Chicago. And she says, "You're going to do it?" I go, I don't do contests. She goes, "Do you know who the judges are?" I said, "No." And then she listed the judges. She goes, "That's your audition for all of their clubs." I go, "I'm going," and that's the reason.
See, then it means something. But then it means something.
Yeah,
Start Search. The judges were like, the second unit director for, Kids in Hell. So, you know what I'm saying. Set designer for Charlie's Angels Full Throttle.
Charles Grodin's stuntman.
Charles Grodin, stuntman.
Charles Grodin, stuntman. I love it.
Wow. So he was the one flying the plane in Midnight Run. Okay.
Yeah.
Did you ever meet Grodin?
Who are you talking to?
Any of you? Did you ever meet Charles Grodin?
No,
I've never.
I met him when I was working at NBC. I met him. He was the most, and I mean this as a compliment, childlike, not childish, but childlike person I had ever met with his level of fame and talent. He goes, it's an NBC thing and all these big wigs are there. And he goes, Jesus, I've never seen this many important people. And I go, well, you're pretty damn important. He goes, yeah, but look who's here. And the person who impressed him most, and he was not a conservative, was Roger Ailes.
Wow.
And Roger Ailes walked up to Al Franken and put his arm around him. And Richard Belzer was there because Belzer was on Homicide, which was an NBC show.
Yeah.
And Belzer, you could hear this throughout the room. Belzer said, "You're in the grip of the devil, Franken. The devil has his arm around you, Franken. Do you feel the heat coming off of him? Can you smell it?" Because Belzer was fearless, Can you smell it? And I said, and when I met Richard Belzer later, I said, I remember that night. He said, I was praying that Ailes would say something to me. I was literally said, and I'm not religious. I was praying, please say something inflammatory to me, please, so I can get even louder.
Oh yeah, that's what he did. That's what.
And the next thing you know. By the way, Freddie Roman passed away.
Yesterday, I heard that.
Yeah.
And the first one, who I looked up first as soon as I heard Freddie Roman was gone. I want to make sure that
Stewie Stone.
No, Pat Cooper was still around.
Wow.
Yeah, that Pat Cooper is here because you could look around and go, boy, there's meanness in the air.
Yeah, but to say Pat Cooper will never die because death is not gonna try and take him. I mean,
you know the story about Pat Cooper and Sinatra's mother, right?
No. I gotta hear this.
Good.
So Pat Cooper's on stage.
That's what they show us for, baby. That's what they show us for. Dish, buddy. Dish.
So Pat Cooper's on stage, and I don't know. It was in Vegas. And Dolly Sinatra, Frank's mother, was in the audience. And Pat Cooper used to go by his real name, Pasquale Caputo. Mm-hmm. And he used to be, very early on, all of the comics that we used to see, or since I'm older than everybody here, that I used to see growing up, they would finish their set with a song, like Jack Carter. And okay. And so, God, I hope it wasn't that bad. And so Dolly Sinatra goes, Patsy, sing a song. Now he knew it was Sinatra's mother, right? So you sing a goddamn song for the lady. She's like 110. Mm-hmm. And he goes, hey, lady, your son's the fucking crooner. Get him to sing for you. Every sound you're making now is completely justified.
Ah.
And he's got replacement kneecaps now, right?
Well, I'll tell you how bad it was. They killed him, and then they went to work on him. So, so later that night, Mrs. Sinatra is in her suite at the Sahara, and she gets a phone call, and it's Pat Cooper. And Pat Cooper saying, and I'm trying to quote this as accurately as I can, I'm very sorry about what happened to you. It won't happen again. It was rude of me, and I feel very badly. Please accept my apology. Mm-hmm. And he was speaking that way because there was a gun in his mouth.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah.
That is a form of speech impediment, having a...
And it's like the Jackie Mason. Was it Jackie Mason? I think it was Jackie Mason. He did a thing about Sinatra and Mia Farrow.
Oh boy!
I think it was Mason, where he says, he says, can't you see them getting ready for bed? He undoes his, she takes off her braids. He takes off his rug. She undoes her braces. He takes out his teeth. On and on and on. So later that night, he's in a car with a friend, and there's a knock on the window, and he rolls down the window and gets punched in the mouth.
Yeah.
Mr. Sinatra doesn't appreciate what you said.
Mm.
Well, if you know anything about Jackie Mason, he was a hard ass.
Yeah.
You know, who are you to talk that way to me? So then he does this joke. He says, this is amazing. If I go to bed, and if you remember what Mia Farrow looked like when she was married to Sinatra, she had what they used to be called a Gaiman look. It was almost, looked like a boy.
Mhm.
Very, very, very short hair. She was very slender, boyish looking. So he says, Jackie Mason says, I don't get it. I go to bed with a boy, I get arrested. Sinatra marries her, nothing.
Oh.
Wow.
Later that night, 2 shots are fired into his suite.
Yeah.
Mm.
And then the phone rang, and this is what the caller said. I hope you noticed we missed.
Hey, wasn't it Joey Brown though who was nearly beaten to death by the mob for
had his throat cut? Joey Lewis. Joey Lewis had his throat cut. He was a singer. He was never a comedian. Had his throat slashed. Okay.
Yeah, because he went up against the mob control of the clubs at the time.
Yep.
All right.
They were not appreciative of his efforts.
So really, they just fired
everybody here. I think everybody here is over 60, right?
Yep.
Sadly, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And now
60.
And now
good times. 60.
I know Johnny and Jason weren't doing comedy back then, but were any of you guys in the old clubs that had some mob influence? And because I remember when I started in Detroit before the Comedy Castle in '79, it was strip joints and and thieving.
Wasn't Chaplin's also kind of? Wasn't Chaplin's kind of a?
Oh, you know who's got a great story, and I almost got him to tell it on this show. I think you were on that show, Sam. That's before you were a regular guest. When we had Glenn Farrington, did he tell his story about the club here in Detroit that he worked with the mob guys?
Sorry.
Did we lose Sam?
Probably.
I'm right here.
Okay. No, do you remember when you and Glenn Farrington were? This is about 2.5 years ago.
I remember when he was here.
Yeah. Now, do you remember him telling? Did he tell the story that night, or was it another time?
I don't remember the story.
I don't want to tell it. It's really Glenn Farrington's story to tell, but it's a great story. In fact, I'm going to call him up, see if he'll come on next week. Tell the story.
Glenn said something that night, and it completely befuddled me. He said that when he first came to New York, he didn't have a place to stay, and I put him up in my place. I have no memory of that. I have no memory of. I mean, if I did, then I did, but I have no memory of that. I mean, so many guys have passed through my rooms.
Sam,
I don't want to drop. I don't want to drop a pants, but
you're killing me with envy, Sam. Oh my Lord!
Hey, when you got a place in New York, you can.
Glenn is a winsome little buck, isn't he?
You're making me walk the plank of envy.
I'm going to get a hold of Glenn. His kids are doing really well.
Yeah. Richard Pryor, I think, probably told one of the best mob stories ever. How he went in. He was working with Satin Doll. He was very early in his career. They weren't going to pay her. They weren't going to pay him. So he goes into the office with a cheap little 22, and they start laughing at him. Right. And eventually he says,
they laugh at him. They go, "Oh, look. Oh, he's got a 22. I'm scared. Oh."
Right. Yeah.
That gives you, Jason, that gives you some idea of what the mob is like, that you could point a gun at them and they would laugh at you.
And then they start telling murder stories about the time they ice picked Vinny somewhere, and then the handle breaks off of the ice pick, and good times. Yeah, exactly. I mean, the closest I ever came to was both the sort of gay clubs or bars in Ann Arbor had a lot of mob influence because the mob owned. They didn't much like gay people, but they had no problem taking the money.
Yeah.
So they.
Well, you know what they did? They offered the gay people protection, and which is what the mob does.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, we don't love you, but
they offered them condoms.
Not that different protection. Different protection.
You know who had great? You know who's got great mob stories?
One of the most successful clubs in Boston, Nick's.
Nick's, yes, Nick's was,
and that was completely. Yeah. In fact, named for it among comics was the Bulletproof Lounge.
Now we had one here in Detroit called the Brass Rail. Any of you guys remember the Brass Rail?
I remember hearing of it. Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, Sam, we're losing your audio again.
Oh, there we go. Sam's gone. Darn. Damn it.
Anyway, the Brass Rail. You know who's got great stories about the Brass Rail is Willie Tyler.
Oh,
and
really?
He said the problem with the mob in Detroit. The mob in Detroit was pretty much not the Purple Gang by the time the club scene happened. You know, the
Zerillis and the Tocos.
Yeah,
pretty much
exactly.
were in construction for the most part.
Uh-huh. And the thing is about the mobs in showbiz. Anybody that wanted to get into that was out in Vegas.
Yeah,
to some degree Atlantic City, but more Vegas than Atlantic City. But he would talk about Willie was telling me about how they didn't know how to react to the black entertainers. He said, and that's why when Motown came along, they couldn't get into Motown. The mob did not get into Motown. It was all because Barry ran it like he was the Don, you know.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah,
Barry Gordy, and so they as much as they tried, they could not get into Motown. I'm sorry, I can't. Sam, your sound is still out.
By the way,
anybody get that?
Is it okay now?
That's better.
That's fine.
Okay. I don't know if this matters to you, Mark, but you know, the other day Michigan beat the shit out of Ohio State.
Yeah, so it was wonderful.
I was happy about that.
Well,
yeah,
I cried.
Well, let me explain one of the things that happened as a result of that. There were two guys from Ohio, two football players from Ohio. I want to say that again. Two players from Ohio who were being recruited by Ohio State. And after the game, they committed to Michigan.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I love that stuff.
1 hour after that game, they committed to Michigan.
Yeah. Ned is a grad. He's a Wolverine.
Yeah.
Good man.
And so, you know, and I'm a Wayne State graduate, so I get excited every time they fence.
Oh, that's great. Oh my God.
It is
nice parry,
so cool.
Nice thrust.
That's exactly what it is. I looked up. I went to what's the place we always looked up in Wikipedia, and I looked up the NCAA fencing championships, and it was just great because it's all Notre Dame, Penn State, every once in a while Dartmouth, and University of Detroit won it one time.
Yeah.
Wow.
There was a string there, and
the thing is, in Detroit, fencing means selling stolen property.
Yeah.
I think they're
fencing.
Well, I used to do that. I used to do that line, and I loved doing it in Ann Arbor because everybody was a big Michigan fan. I'd get up there at the club in Ann Arbor and say, say what you want about your. And I think the last time I did it, their basketball team was in the final. I go, say what you want about your basketball team. We got the fencing championships. You put your 5 best if you put your 5 best basketball players in a room with my 5 best fencers, I'm putting my money in the fencers to come walking out of there.
Hey, I took fencing classes at Pioneer High School back in the day.
I took them when I was a theater major. I took them.
Yeah.
Of course, my nickname was Slasher, but that's not the point.
That was before you took the lessons, though.
That had nothing to do with fencing.
No.
Well, my school had the world famous Hillberry Theater, which is where the fencing program came out of. Because you're right, they taught it as part of the theater program. Mm-hmm. And we have a number of famous Ernie Hudson and Lily Tomlin and Chad Everett. If you want to go way back, but anyway, it's got a number. And so the fencing grew out of that, but it wasn't theater people that became the best fence. Once they had a fencing program, they started attracting international students from Eastern Europe.
Athletes, yeah.
where they grew up as fencers, and they had little league fencers now. So
I told my mother that I was going to take a course in fencing. Her first words were chain link.
Well, we had a string there from 1980 to about 1992 for about 12 years. It was either us or Notre Dame that won. Then Penn State started getting good teams, but for a while there. And Johnny, he's a Wayne State alum too. So
well, I would be if I take one more class.
You can't take one more class just to get your degree. How hard would that be?
Well, it's just like
fencing. That's the problem.
Yeah.
That's funny. That is funny. The class is fencing. He kept
I quit 9 hours short of my PhD.
Did you really?
Ooh. I sure did. In clinical psychology.
How does that make you feel, Sam?
But you know what? Would you be in comedy if you finished that? Would you be in comedy?
I'll tell you what got me out of it. I had to go to a lecture by a guy who was a PhD in clinical psychology, and he was going to be my doctoral advisor.
Right.
And I have a short attention span. And it was so bad, I was digging my fingernails into someone else's hand. That's how bad it was. Okay. I was going crazy. I said, I can't do this. And let me also say, in fairness, it wasn't just 9 hours. I had to do a doctoral dissertation. I had to do an oral defense of the dissertation. There was, and also, this is before everybody's time, but there used to be a computer language called COBOL, which was common, ordinary, business-oriented language.
Right.
And I'm sitting in that class, and I'm trying to listen. I'm trying to hear, learn. And I thought, I can't do this. I literally actually can't do this. And if this is what it takes to get me into a PhD, I don't mean like I wasn't interested. I don't mean I was bored. I could not understand what the hell she was saying. I was completely lost. Yeah. So I gave it up. And instead I joined a rock band.
There you go.
There you go. Well, COBOL was the product of the first female admiral, United States Navy, Amazing Grace Hopper.
Is that the one that just passed away recently?
Something?
Is she the one that just passed away recently?
No, she passed away some years ago. But she was on Letterman every now and then back in the early.
Letterman loved her.
Loved her.
Funnier than hell.
I told you the story about when she was on Letterman, and Letterman loved her, and the crowd, which is all young people, loved her. Right. And the comedy act that night was Will Durst, and he evidently wasn't watching her. And he comes on stage and he goes, this is first line words. And this is an 82-year-old woman at the time. He goes, I was just in New Hampshire, old people and their parents. And he just died. It died. He died. Will's funny. Yeah. And it was awful. Seriously, I'll tell you how bad it was. I was saying Kaddish. That's how bad it was.
Oh, wow.
Has anybody heard how Will's doing? I mean, he wasn't doing too well there for a while.
He had a stroke.
Yeah.
Oh, that's too bad.
Any news?
The thing about having a stroke, I've learned, because my brother-in-law passed away from one. Either you have one and you recover completely, you have one and you recover somewhat, or you have one and you'd be better off dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's about right.
My dad had a stroke. He was lucky he got through it. Anyway, the music is up. That means we got less than 2 minutes. Yep, we got a minute and a half left here. So I'm going to wrap things up. Thanks for showing up. I shot a man.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was confession time. I'm sorry. I take it back.
You know what? I got to do this at the beginning. Darn it. I'm supposed to tell people to click like and subscribe. And I forget that every week. I'm never going to be a YouTube.
Damn it, Mark.
I'm never going to be a YouTube hit if I can't remember to do that shit. But anyway.
Well, you could get a cat. No, you could get a cat that looks like Hitler.
Yeah.
I'm sure Nick Fuentes has one.
Callback.
Anyway, we do this every Monday night at 8:00. Please go to my YouTube page. It's YouTube/Mark Sweetman. Very creative. And you can find it there. And I also post to Detroit Comedians and Comedy Fans Facebook page and Michigan Comedy Lovers And yeah, go ahead. Join us each week. Let me know if you want to do a skit on the show. We really can't do more than 6 people at a time without slowing down the feed. As you can tell, Sammy's sound kind of dragged a little bit, but we'll do the best we can. And we'll see everybody next week. Thanks for joining us.
Ned, it was great seeing you.
Ned Wright, Connie Lewis, Jason Grant, Jensen, Sam Greenfield. I'm Mark Sweetman. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Right.
Nice.